Hey tribe, welcome to HGDC. Today I'm going to teach you how to weave in the ends on your granny square as part of my granny square tutorial series. You can go back and look at how to make a granny square and then also watch the rest of the playlist to learn the rest of my tips and tricks. So today you are going to need your granny square, you're going to need some scissors, and you're going to need a darning needle. I use these larger darning needles that have a big eye so that I can get the wool through them. So take your granny square, and I start with the very centre yarn. This is the strand that you made your slip knot on. Rub the yarn between your fingers so that you can get it through the eye of the needle easily and thread your needle. I'm then going to follow through the stitches like so, and knot. And pull the needle through. I'm going to carry on working my way around a couple of times just to make sure that the end is well buried, and I'm giving it a little bit of a tug just to close up the centre ever so slightly. Once you've gone around a couple of times, stretch out the centre and then snip the end off. Next I'm going to work on this second end for the brown, thread my needle, and then I am going to follow the brown around but at the top of the stitches, and I'm just going to weave it through following the stitch until I get to this corner section here where I can really bury the yarn. Whenever I'm weaving my ends in, I always try and get to a solid section like a corner so that you can go through multiple times and then go back on yourself. Then make sure you stretch out the granny square. It's important to stretch out the granny square before you snip it, because if you pull it really tight and it's puckered up, once you do stretch it out so that you can seam or join it to another granny square, the end will poke through. So I always stretch it out and then snip the end off. And that way I know that there won't be any end poking through. And then I'm going to pick the next end. I always work methodically from centre outwards. You can choose to go the other way or do it in whatever pattern that suits you, but this works for me. And I'm just going to bury it a couple times in the corner. So I've gone through it 4 times, stretched out the yarn, and I can snip that. Again, because it's the top of a stitch, I'm going to weave my way around and then through this centre column here, and then I'm going to go down this treble or double stitch simply by weaving my way through the stitch so that I can work my way to this corner. The reason I've chose this corner is because I've already buried 2 stitches in that one and I don't want it to be too bulky. So I've come to this one instead. Simply go backwards and forwards a couple of times, trying not to split the stitches as you come back through. And once you've been backwards and forwards twice, stretch out the granny square, snip the end, and you're done. Now because this one is yellow, I am going to work my way to the yellow corner by weaving through the stitch get to the corner. I don't want to pull it too tight because I don't want there to be a pull just here. If your end is too short, you can always bury your needle and then thread it. Stretch the shape of the granny square out and then snip the end, and then the last one I am going to go down this centre column, pull out the stray hair that I seem to collect, and then into the corner like so. Make sure it's not pulling too tight. Go back on myself. Stretch it out. And there we are. You've weaved your ends in on your first granny square. I highly recommend that you do this as you go along, otherwise you will end up with a huge project with lots of ends to weave in, and that project will probably stay in your almost done pile for a good couple of years because you can't face weaving all the ends in. So get yourself into the habit of pausing at the end of every granny square, or at the end of maybe 10, or as you're about to join a row, so that you do your ends as you go along. Okay tribe, thank you for watching, and make sure you look at the rest of the granny square series.